everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for July 7th through 13th, 2025. I think last week I wrote in the date stamp it said June 39th, which I don't know, maybe that was symbolic in some way. But we've got lots to talk about, and some of this is the things that we have been talking about since last week or even before. So as of today, for the first time in 80 years, yes, 80 years, Uranus is in Gemini. So one of the things that really makes 2025 stand out, and I talked about this in my 2025 video, I've been talking about this over the last 6-7 months, is that 2025 is a year where we have the outer planets changing signs all within a relatively short period of time. I would have to go back very far. I went back hundreds of years and I couldn't really see a time and I didn't want to lose myself in a research hole when all the planets were changing within a year period. First was Pluto in Aquarius, followed by Neptune in Aries, followed by Saturn in Aries. Who else am I missing? Jupiter in Cancer, although Jupiter changes signs every year, and now Uranus in Gemini. And you hear me say it every week, not just the astrology is 50%, you're the other 50%. It's astrology's time and how we live time. And of course, there's Saturn time, and that sort of marks the chapters of our lives, but you get into something like Pluto time. Pluto takes 16, 20 years to go through a zodiac sign. You go into Uranus time, and that's like 7 years to go through a zodiac sign. Neptune takes 14 years to go through a zodiac sign. So it's like looking at the clock and seeing the hands on the clock all changing signs relatively one after the other. So what can we take from this? It means that we are in a new hour, collectively, personally, perhaps even a new era. I know that that's a big word. What time will tell. But that said, what's going on this week? And just to reintroduce myself, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located in the rolling hills of Central Maryland. Presently, I'm in Delaware, so we're on Beach House Internet. We'll see how long Beach House Internet holds out. But you hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. And so we got Uranus and Gemini. We also have a Capricorn full moon this week. And that Capricorn full moon is activating Saturn and Aries. So astrology is about time. It's about stories and how these different stories unfold at different points in our life. Saturn, and you know how much I love Saturn. Why do I love Saturn so much? Because Saturn really helps to see life, to see our lives, and to see where, especially where Saturn is right now for us, because Saturn changed signs back on May 24th. What is now our priority? Wherever Saturn is, that's your priority. It could be family, it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be career, depending on where Saturn is right now in the sky. But also, where was Saturn when you were born? That's your priority. That's one of the big priorities of your life, and it's something that your life is building around. So that's a whole other topic, Saturn. But this week, we have the Capricorn full moon. That full moon points over to Saturn in Aries. So Aries receives the energy of the full moon. Did I say new moon? But full moon. It receives the energy of the full moon because the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn. Saturn is in Aries. Aries receives the energy of the full moon. But then on the 13th, Sunday, we have Saturn turn retrograde. And without going into a huge love story of why I love Saturn, what I've noticed is that when Saturn turns retrograde or direct, there's a story that can sometimes show up around that point. That story is not or an arbitrary story, a random story. It's a story that's really building itself through Saturn's time in that sign. So, 6 weeks ago, Saturn went into Aries. That's actually not that long ago. I think on some level, we're still getting a sense of what is shifting and what this new time is on the perspective of Saturn. It is, especially this week, sort of taking Uranus out of the mix for a second. It is for us to really observe. Now, this is what I do as an astrologer. I don't, even though I'm looking at the astrology each week, I'm not obsessing about the astrology, if that makes sense. I'm not looking at my life with a fine-tooth comb. I'm just observing. So when I observe, whether it's Saturn, whether it's Pluto, whether it's Uranus going to Gemini, I try to listen for what I hear the transit could be unfolding for me. I've noticed, and this is just my early feel for myself with Saturn and Aries, is that there's this sort of inner monologue, but it's very relevant to my life, perhaps not in this, but this idea of leadership and really standing into a role of leadership, all the accountability that comes with that. And when you are in a position of leadership, you have to be a mentor for people, you have to organize things. And I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about Neptune and Aries because Neptune and Saturn are together in Aries at the moment. And what does leadership look like through the lens of Neptune? Again, bigger stories, but just wanted to sort of give you a personal insight of how I listen for the transit. Uranus going into Gemini, started to notice that I was getting requests to do more mediumship work. And that's something that I can do, although I don't want to talk to dead people. That's a whole, there's reasons for that. But I was like, is this question mark? Uranus going into Gemini. It was the joke that I made last week. I was like, maybe I should just go into insurance. I was like, is this Uranus going into Gemini? I don't know. Maybe be a medium. Maybe go into insurance. We've just only now had Uranus go into Gemini. So listen for the transit. Sit with yourself this week. Where do you feel Saturn? On one hand, Saturn is it's time to grow up. It's time to put things in order. It's time to make commitments. And depending on what age we are, you could be 80 years old and immature. I know that sounds a bit, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A strong example, but maturity is something that we have to integrate within ourselves. There's age, it's biological age, and then there's actually something that we live. And of course, Saturn is time and how time shapes our lives. So there's that, there's Saturn, there's responsibility, there's commitments, there's this new story of Saturn and Aries, and perhaps Saturn, Aries leadership. That's something that's coming in for you as well. Aries is also the energy of new beginnings. So where do you feel this push to have a new beginning, to really lay out the foundation and the framework, to put things in order, to have a plan? Mars is in Virgo, for example. And then we have this other story, Uranus and Gemini. It's all connected because it's all part of the greater tapestry of our lives and the greater tapestry of the sky. But where do you see or feel or listen for where Uranus is beginning to come into your life? Now, I know it's a big statement when I say that depending on your sign, Uranus going into Gemini is the start of a big change. And I'm saying this as a Scorpio. I went through Uranus and Taurus last 6-7 years. It's a big shift and transformation. And I said this also because I said this in the video. I even wrote about this because on my website, empoweringastrology.com, I wrote a whole thing about Uranus and Gemini. I wrote about even the sign by sign, what it means for you. And I get questions from people, and I talk about something called the Uranus opposition. Not everyone is 40 or in your 40s right now or approaching 40s, but this is still important information for you to understand, because if Saturn builds the time of our lives, and we have the Saturn return age 28, 29, 30, we even have the second Saturn return 58, 59, 60. The Uranus opposition 42, 43, but this is really throughout 40 to 45, 46 approximately. It is a time of rapid personal growth and transformation that is designed for you to break free of anything that's not really you. It can be a liberation, it can be a reinvention, it can be a turn everything upside down. So that period, which I'm super fascinated with now because I've been through it, really builds upon the Saturn return. a whole other conversation for another time. So for those that are born 82, 83, all the way up to 87, because some of the dates in 88, this is the start of what's called your Uranus opposition. Now that Uranus is in Gemini, and there's a reason why the 40s are cliched and why people suddenly wake up one day is like, I need to move, I need to leave this relationship, I need to leave this career, I need to go in a different direction. And that's Uranus. Not that Uranus is doing anything to us, it's just mirroring the time in our lives. So keep that in mind. And for the rest of us, regardless of what age we are, now that Uranus is in Gemini, that area, it could be relationships, it could be career, it could be us, especially if we're Gemini or Gemini rising, will begin to make a big, profound change. Strong words. I know you can come back and be like, nothing happened. I'll take it. But you've got 7 years to come back to me and say nothing happened. What is, and this is for you to just reflect on, what is the most radical thing that can happen? Is it that you change your career? Is that you move? Is that you are happy? Because sometimes the most radical thing that can happen is that we are happy and that we really truly leave behind the past. And Uranus has no sentimentality. That's part of its work. It's part of its magic. It's part of its chaos, is where it says, this is not supporting you. This is not growing, helping you grow. So when we go through each of the 12 signs, not just talk about Saturn, talk about Uranus, just to refresh some of the things that we talked about last week, what is going to begin to change and transform? You can be, this is the part that's you. You're the 50% that's you. How do you begin to work with this energy? If you know that you are going into your 40s and this could be a time when there is a shift, how do you begin to work with that energy? I got questions like, what does it mean when it makes goes into Gemini? I have a Gemini moon. I have a Gemini moon too. You have to look at the personal chart. It's too specific to the moment that you're born and the chart that it creates. So yes, the moon or any planet has a function in our life, but depending on the birth chart, that's going to give you more information. So you can book a consultation with me, empoweringastrology.com. I know some of you are my clients. I know you listen to me every week, and I love going through the chart with people. So Uranus in Gemini, Saturn turning retrograde. Saturn is going to start to give us this idea of what this new time that we're in, because keep in mind that Saturn is in Aries until September 1st. It goes back to Pisces. It rounds out its time in Pisces, and then it goes back into Aries on February 13th, at least here in the East Coast of the United States. So let's just dive in, because we've got a lot going on, and talk about what this means through each of the 12 zodiac signs. So starting with Aries. Aries, just to sort of recap some of the things that we've been talking about last week, Saturn has been in your sign since May 24th. So we've got 6 weeks of this time of Saturn in your sign. It's to listen and to feel, it's to intuit, it's to see, what does this mean for you? Do you see new beginnings? Do you feel like now more things are being asked of you, more duties, more responsibilities? The next coming years, 2025, but especially 6, 7, and into the beginning of 2028, is a time that's really marking your life. You need to do Saturn. Saturn says, take things seriously, make a commitment, set boundaries, show up on time. And very often Saturn will mark the type of milestones that are the type of milestones that we see, like it could be a move, it could be a marriage, it could be birth of a child, it could be a major career transit. These are the things that really mark the story of our life. But Saturn is sort of in its first foray into Aries, and it's sort of holding the clipboard and saying, okay, Aries, these are the things that we're going to have to come back to and start to work on, depending on who you are. Because Saturn is always the things that we are working on. So listen for Saturn this week. We do have the Capricorn full moon, and Capricorn is your career sign. So the full moon is in a part of your chart that talks about your professional life. It is your public reputation. It is your duties and responsibilities, but it's also roping you in because the energy points back to Aries. So it's going to really talk about this new beginning in your life. And that new beginning on some level might be talking about your career or the responsibilities that you carry, or even your public life. Keep in mind that Mars, your planet, is still in Virgo. It'll be in Virgo until the beginning of August. And so this is a time that continues to be about duties, responsibilities, taking your health seriously, taking your wellness seriously, putting things in order, being on top of the operations of life. So it just sounds like a lot's being asked of you at the moment, and maybe that's just part of life. Then there is Uranus, and now it's in your third sign, voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. We all have a voice. It's not just our ability to open our mouth and to speak. It's not just our ability to think and to process information. It's to start to gather all this information and for it to illuminate something, for it to awaken something. Every Aries will live through the energies of Uranus differently, whether it's because of the age you are or because of the sort of sense of personal consciousness that you have already. But on some level, you've entered a period of your life where your words, your ideas, your mind, your thinking needs to match something, to match you, to match what's within yourself. This could be a time when you want to focus on education. You're thinking about taking new classes. You're thinking about moving, traveling, seeking, exploring. You're thinking about looking at things from a different perspective. Maybe on some level you don't need to look for it. It will come to you. But the idea is that the coming 6-7 years begins to illuminate how you think, how you listen, how you learn. And that then may inspire very different choices in your life going forward. Taurus. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is now in Gemini. So on one hand, we have Venus in the space that talks about money, income, material stability and security, but also value and worth. This is in a space that typically is Taurus's domain, something called the second. And Taurus, as a money sign, it has a strong sense of value and worth and the work that is needed in order to make that material stability and security in your life. Venus is now in the same sign as Uranus, and it's a little bit hard to say what the next few years will bring, but on some level it will represent a shift of values. And this is just an example. Maybe right now you earn a living a certain way. You are in a corporate job, you are a CEO, you're whatever, and you're like, yes, this is what I value. But maybe something begins to shift so that by 6-7 years from now, you're like, I don't want to work in a corporate environment and earn money in a way that doesn't match my heart and my soul. This is just an example. For some of you, it is to come into yourself, to really begin to feel safe and secure in your life, to shift your relationship with the material plane. That includes earning money, wealth, stability. This is not a promise, but this is for you to begin to feel out what this shift in transit means for you. Money is just money. Of course, we have to pay the bills. We need to keep the lights on. But I think deep down inside, it's to shift your consciousness with what truly is of value and importance to you. Venus in this space is beginning to also reframe this for you, although Venus will be out of this space by the end of July. Then there's Saturn. Saturn is pointing to a very different time in your life. And it's like you've got Uranus now in Gemini, you've got Saturn now in Aries, you've got Pluto now in Aquarius. That's career for you. Saturn is now pointing towards your sign of spirituality. And maybe that's to sort of talk about this shift of values, a potential shift of values for you over the next few years. Now, the 12th sign, your 12th in Aries is your 12th sign, Saturn is now saying the priority is what is your sense of meaning and purpose, how you fulfill yourself, and perhaps even spirituality. as well. Saturn has led you into a space within your personal astrology and in reality within yourself, which is very subtle. The next few years, on one hand, it is to search and explore yourself. And I don't mean to go to therapy or to talk about your feelings. I mean to get into the deepest spaces, the deepest, most subtlest spaces within your heart and your spirit. For some of you, the next few years is to come to the end of something, an end of a journey, an end of a cycle, to begin to let something go and to perhaps detach yourself from something that you thought would always define you, but maybe in reality, it's not truly you. For some Tauruses, the next few years are about really building something that isn't material, but is something that is emotional, spiritual, and energetic. You've entered a time, I've sort of said this already, but it's important to say it again, where you need to begin to make meaning and purpose in your life. So what are the things, what are the inner work, the things to read, the time to reflect, the meditation, in order to begin to answer some of these deep existential questions? That is the major priority, the major hand on your clock right now. And maybe that's the sort of the work with Uranus now in Gemini to completely shift your values and your relationship with the material plane. Gemini, we got lots to talk about Gemini. So you now have a long-term visitor to your sign. And you've never had Uranus in Gemini in your lifetime unless you are in your 80s listening to me right now. But Uranus going into your sign, Uranus is what's called an evolutionary planet. An evolutionary planet is exactly as it sounds. Its role and its function is to get you to grow and evolve. And you all are different people, even if you have a Gemini sun or Gemini rising. You're different people, you have different consciousness, you have different lived experiences. So you will live this time differently. But there's some pretty standard markers for Uranus. It demands radical authenticity. If you are living a life that does not match your heart and your spirit and your soul, there will begin to have some friction. If maybe this is not relevant for you, maybe the coming years are about really stepping into something, breaking free from something, being you for the first time, entering a period of rapid personal growth and transformation. But it's possible that events in your life will begin to create the change and the shift for you. As I've been saying for some of the other signs, and even saying in my introduction, listen for the transit. It's not that like today is suddenly a brand new day because Uranus is in Gemini and you're Gemini, but it's to listen for the transit. Where do you feel called to make a change? What is changing around you? What feels different? What doesn't feel different? But it's always to listen to your heart and your spirit, because if there's something inside of you that hasn't had a chance to live outside of you, then here comes Uranus and Gemini. And I'm not somebody that bets money, but I would bet something that if we were to have this conversation 6 years from now, something about your life looks quite different. That's the role of Uranus. Then we look over to Saturn and Aries. Saturn is in your sign of community, society, humanity, social issues, social causes, your sense of belonging to the greater whole. And on some level, we have to sort of look at these as a supportive transit, even though they're in different signs. And maybe as you begin to look towards the world and you want to participate in certain ways, you want to find groups to get involved in, or maybe you're questioning who you're involved in your social circle, you want to make new friends, you don't feel the match with your friends anymore. Maybe that's one of the areas where this is sort of playing out with the Uranus and Gemini. It's like as you change and transform, your view of the world, your view of your friendships, your view of your community may begin to change as well. I have noticed quite frequently when the Saturn goes through the 11th sign, that it can be a little hard on friendships. Because Saturn, what Saturn is beginning to do is to make you very aware of the people, the real, true people that are going to support your life, and the people who are periphery. The periphery people are beginning to leave. That's just what happens when Uranus goes to the 11th. but it is to use this time to build relationship, to build connection, to build community, and to really feel like you begin to belong to the greater whole. Cancer. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon is going between Sagittarius this week. We have a full moon on the 10th, that's Thursday. And by the weekend, it goes, I think, into Aquarius. So this week it's Cancer season, it's your birthday season, happy birthday. To have a full moon, if it's your birthday on the 10th, plus or minus a couple of days, is that it is a year that is illuminated for you. Things are happening. You're like, oh my God, things are always happening, Katie, but things are happening. So this full moon is putting the spotlight on relationships. It's both what I like to call capital R relationships. So your primary relationships, your partnerships, your spouse, your marriage, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your whatever. It's not your situationship. And this is also putting the spotlight in a need for commitment. So Capricorn is your relationship sign, and it's pointing the energy of that full moon over to either your career or your sense of duties and responsibilities, your public life, your public reputation. This is kind of a big full moon for you, and this full moon plays off of the eclipse that you had in your career sign back on March 29th. And this full moon might be about relationships, but it also might be about something much bigger than relationships, your life, and what really builds and supports your life. And maybe Saturn is asking you, like, what do you want? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the role that you want to play in the world? What are the relationships that you want in your life? Because Saturn on some level is sort of setting a higher bar for you. It's certainly setting a higher bar for you with this full moon. This energy does play off of the Jupiter square Saturn. Jupiter is in Cancer, so it's your life. It's got a lot of stuff going on in your life. And these signs, Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and even Libra, which is your sign of home and family, these are your 4 pillars. They hold up your life. So you may feel that in July you are at some sort of a crossroads. Then there's Uranus and Gemini, and Gemini is something called your 12th sign. The 12th sign, it functions to take you out of this life and out of this world. What do I mean by that? Well, there's dreams, there's intuitions, but there's also who you are outside of this world, beyond this world. You are a physical being, you are a non-physical being. Depending on who you are, Uranus is beginning to open your consciousness, open your eyes to a space that is normally hidden from you. It's always there. It's just deep down inside of you. For some Cancers, you already have a sense of spirituality. I don't mean religion, but something that helps you to really seek and find answers and to find your place in the world. For some Cancers, this is a completely new area for you, and Uranus is trying to wake you up and remind you that you're not just this body, you're not just this life. So listen for the transit. Where do you feel called to go into the 12th? Where do you feel spirituality or even bigger existential questions beginning to come into your life? This is Uranus in one of its most subtle places. It's not the big dramatic transit like it is for some of the other signs. It's happening deep within, and it's trying to get you to open up to spaces within yourself that you have not yet had a chance to open. Leo. So the sun is your planet, and as the sun is in Cancer, it is coming to the end of your personal cycle. So we will have the sun go into Leo. That's typically around the 22nd or 23rd of July. I can't remember which date. But this is the time for you to rest, for you to go within, and for you to navigate a space whose role is to get you to prepare for the next chapter, but also to touch into or step into very deep existential questions. Why am I here? What is this all for? When the sun will go into your sign, it is the start of a new cycle and new personal year. But in the meantime, don't push it. It's time to meditate. It's time to reflect. Leo, this is also Saturn is in something called your ninth sign. And the ninth sign is a space that is, oh, sorry, I'm doing the wrong, yes, right, astrology. Saturn is in your ninth sign. Sorry, my brain went back to Cancer. But Saturn is in your ninth sign, and the ninth sign, its role is not. It's hard to put the ninth in a very concrete way because its role is philosophical. Our lives, by and large, exist within ourselves in a very small realm. We go to work, we have relationships, perhaps we have family, perhaps we have kids, and that's a very sort of small space. But when we get to Saturn in the ninth, we're trying to make sense of things. It is a very philosophical space, and it's brought you into a time where you need to begin to figure out, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? This is built on the time of Saturn in the eighth, where you needed to make your inner life, your emotional life, your priority. After everything that you've been through in the past few years, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you want us to stand behind, so to speak? The next few years, on some level, are about faith. Not the faith necessarily of religion, but the faith that sees you through life, the faith that helps you to look beyond yourself, and the faith in the desire to want more out of your life. For some Leos, this is about going back to school. For some Leos, this is about religion. For some Leos, this is about something bigger, to look outside of yourself and look towards the world. Saturn is also to make something concrete. And for some Leos, the next few years, it'll be concrete to get a degree, or to write a book, or to publish something, or to get very concrete within yourself about what is your sense of right and wrong. Listen for Saturn in the ninth. Feel for Saturn in the ninth. What are you being asked to do? Where is your sense of commitment, your duty, and responsibility? Then there's Uranus in the 11th. And Uranus has gone into a space that is about your friends, your community, your sort of place in the world, your sense of social issues and causes in the collective. And Uranus is trying to awaken you to something. It could be awaken your relationship to the world, your place in the world, how you participate in the world. And that might shake and shift your friends, your groups, your communities, and so that the people that are coming into your life may be very different than they are right now. Virgo. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury, oh gosh, where's Mercury right now? Mercury is in Leo. And Leo is bringing you towards the end of your personal calendar, because Leo is something called your 12th sign. I spoke about this last week, but it's important for you to remember that Mercury actually is going to be in Leo for quite a while, 2 months in total, because we're going to have a retrograde in later in July. I can't remember the date. So with Mercury in Leo, this is a good sort of question for you to reflect on. Like, where do you feel this time right now? Do you feel tired? Do you feel like you need to have some, what I like to call sacred alone time? You need to reflect, you need to meditate, because this is part of the time that you're in. Because the 12th is also when you come to the end of something. Meaning when Mercury goes into Virgo, that'll be the start of a new time in your life. But we're not there yet. It is to clear things out, and it is to prepare for this new time in our lives. That said, then there's Saturn in the 8th. And how do I put this? So wherever Saturn is, that area of your life is a priority. What is the 8th? The 8th is a space where we need to face ourselves. I know you're like, nope, I pass, let's put it away. But that's the way astrology works, is because wherever Saturn is, that area is a priority. So for example, 2023, and then later this year, at the beginning of 2026, relationships are a priority. Saturn the 8th says that now it's time for you to focus on your inner life. Your sense of who you are on the deepest levels. It's your psyche, it's your unconscious, it's the things that you have put to the side and said, I'll deal with this later, except now that is now. So Saturn is leading you through a part of yourself that my sort of practical advice is not to do this alone. It's to have somebody to walk this time with you, to lead you through this space, so that in this inner work and this inner revelation, that helps you to illuminate the most parts of yourself that you can't see at this moment. Who comes out of Saturn's time in Aries will be you were born. It's a much higher version of yourself, at least that is the idea. It is to focus on your inner life, your health and wellness, your psychological and emotional health and wellness as well. Having said all that, with Saturn turning retrograde this weekend and also the Capricorn full moon, where do you feel that? Where do you feel this sort of inner world coming up, and maybe emotions that are quite deep coming to the surface? The Capricorn full moon for you is something called your fifth sign. Who are you? Who are any of us? But there is the version of you that you show everybody, and there's the version of you that you show in very private situations, that's the people that you trust. But it's to make sure that there is no discrepancy between those two versions of who you are. And right now, Saturn is stripping away the layers of the old you. Then there's Uranus and Gemini is your career sign. And it's kind of interesting because we have a Capricorn full moon. And over the next 6-7 years, you may make a big change in your career. That's not going to be for every Virgo, but that's one of the ways in which this time, this transit may unfold. You may make a 180, you may have a breakthrough in your career, you may decide to do something differently, or maybe it's not career related. Maybe it's to really step into a very different relationship with duty and responsibility, or even your public life and public reputation. We are a day, barely even a day into Uranus and Gemini. It's not to have all the answers, but it's just to listen and to feel out the transit. Like, where is your career beginning, or at least even the axis of your life beginning to shift? And with that Capricorn full moon, maybe you're sort of thinking yourself, like, what do I want to do now? What's my role in the world? And maybe with Saturn in the 8th, something has to change within so that you can be who you need to be for this time in your life and in the world. Libra, so Venus is your planet, and Venus, I think as of last week, it's in Gemini. So the energy of your sign, or the energy of your rising sign, is beginning to pull you towards something called your ninth. The ninth is like, what do we believe in? What do we stand for? It's not a concrete place, because it's not about your friends. It's not about your relationships. I know I'm on Beach House Internet. It's still recording, thankfully. It's not about your friends. It's not about your relationships. It's not about your career. It's about, what is that inner compass within? We all have, or we need to have, a sense of right and wrong. And so Venus, at the very least, is trying to get you to look out towards the world, towards a philosophy and books and education and travel and exploration. Keep this in mind, because now Uranus is in this space. Uranus in total will be in the space for 7 years. Now, Uranus is only going to be in the space this year, just until November 7th. It returns in 2026. But that said, what are you sensing about, what is shifting in your world? Is it a desire to travel? Is it a desire to participate more in the world? Is it a shakeup of faith? Is it, that's the thing, you have to sort of feel how this is relevant in your life. But this is a time that over the coming years, you may begin to see things differently, believe in something differently. The role of your sense of right and wrong might begin to shift. You might feel more like conviction, more wanting to advocate for something. Maybe you want to get your voice out there. You want to publish something. That could be one of the ways in which this energy is coming into your life. Then there is Saturn in Aries, and Saturn is now, as of the last 6 weeks, in your relationship sign. So as Saturn turns retrograde, it's highlighting something about relationships. Now, It's going to be specific for your life, but there's typically some ways we can look at this that are like the standard ways to look at this. We all need relationships, and this is not a question of romantic relationships. This is just a human function of needing connection. And maybe, you have your own state of relationships. Maybe you're like, what, I need to stop like people pleasing, or I need to stop giving everything to everybody and getting nothing in return. Because remember, you're a Libra, things need to be in balance. You are going into a period that may be marked by the start of a major relationship reaching a particular milestone. Somebody gets married or somebody has a baby. It could be a relationship coming to an end, or a need to restructure and rebuild relationships as a whole in your life. And this includes how you interact and socialize with people. Listen for the transits. So listen for Saturn turning retrograde this week and even into next week. How are you being shown this time for your life? Then there's the Capricorn full moon. Capricorn is a major sign in your astrology. It talks about your home, your roots, your foundation. And this full moon on some level might talk about your living situation, your household, you're planning a move, you're waiting for a baby, you're none of the above. Maybe a parent needs your attention, or maybe it's a little bit more philosophical, like, what is the role of family in your life? So this is a big full moon because it's playing off of relationships. It's playing off of bigger questions about belief and faith and philosophy. It's playing off of your career because it's Cancer season, and you have that Cancer and Jupiter, the Cancer Sun and Jupiter going through your 10th. So a lot of stuff could be going on in your life at this moment, but don't forget, as a Libra, put things into balance, because that's how things remain in harmony. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet. It's still in Virgo, and Virgo, just being Virgo, is trying to get you to really focus, put things in order, have a sense of operations and duties and responsibilities. Virgo or Scorpio, you're like, but I always do that. But it is to use the energy to sort of put things in their place right now, and to sort and to organize, and in some cases to clean things out. Mars is bringing you through a part of your astrology that talks about your friends, your community, your social networks, your sense of social issues and social causes in the world. And this is going to take you all the way into the beginning of August. So this is on some level a social time, a busy time for you, but also time to use that Mars energy to be of service around something that is a social issue or cause, to be of service in your community, to help people, but also using Mars to look towards the future. Meaning Mars is in a space that wants you to look outside of yourself, to hope, to dream, because as Mars eventually gets into Scorpio, this won't be until the end of September, I think, but that is going to bring you into a time where it's about new beginnings, new initiatives. So in advance of that, what are the new beginnings and initiatives do you want to start to make in the last sort of quarter of the year and going into 2026? That said, Saturn is turning retrograde this week. We're having a Capricorn full moon. Capricorn is your sign of voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. It's a time for you to make a commitment, for you to be an authority behind what you say, for you to be really above board. Of course you are. It's to put things also in order. And then you have Saturn in either your sign of health and wellness, or the sign that talks about projects, organization, and really how you run your day-to-day life. This might be a busy week for you, and one where you are being asked to step into bigger roles or to take on more responsibilities and duties, to think about leadership. For some Scorpios, it's not about that. It's about really putting your life in order and balance, like cleaning things out, the things that are just not actually supporting you. And for some Scorpios, is to really focus on your physical health and wellness. You can use this to make a positive choice, positive initiative, and especially with Saturn turning retrograde, to really cement something that you really want to be a positive thing in your health and wellness. Then there's Uranus and Gemini, and Uranus has gone into something called your eighth sign. The eighth is typically the domain of Scorpio. It's a space where Scorpio knows all too often that a life unexamined, a life where nothing happens and every day is like cool, hunky-dory, nothing's happening, nothing happens, nothing grows. And so Uranus is trying to illuminate something for you. It's going to be different for every Scorpio, especially like who you are and the work that you have done on yourself. If you're the type of Scorpio that's been taking everything and pushing it into the space saying, oh, I'll deal with this later, well, it's possible that later is now. Uranus is trying to show you the deepest parts of yourself, the hidden you, the deep you, the unconscious you. And the coming years might, especially with the Saturn in the health and wellness space, might be about emotional health and wellness and emotional illumination. For some Scorpios, it's about going into a space that gets into mediumship and your intuition and psychic abilities. That's not going to be for every Scorpio, but that might be one of the ways in which you're finding your voice, where your day-to-day life is beginning to change, your sense of your intuition and how you use your intuition is beginning to change. But as I was saying, for all the other signs, listen for how these new planets, Saturn and Neptune in your sixth, Uranus is now in your eighth, even Pluto and Aquarius, your fourth, which is a big deal. It's really shifting your life, where you hear some of these changes beginning to unfold around you, or even within, because it could be within as well. Sagittarius. So Jupiter is your planet, and Jupiter is in Cancer. We've been talking about this since June 9th. Jupiter is in Cancer. So wherever Jupiter is, each year Jupiter pulls your energy into a different space and domain in your life. We had 2024 to 5. Jupiter was in your relationship sign of Gemini. And now Jupiter is in your eighth sign. And until June of 2026, it's time to go within. Every Sagittarius, every person, every human being, you have your inner emotional psychic landscape. You are either the person who has been pushing all of your feelings to the side and saying, I'll deal with this later, or you're the person who has been diligently working on yourself over the whatever many years. With Jupiter in this space, it is to have the courage, the fortitude to go into the deepest parts of yourself and discover what is truly there. On some level, you've entered a chapter of your life that is about intimacy, trust, vulnerability, really revealing yourself and being more open about who you truly are. Then there's relationships. And now Uranus is in your seventh sign of relationship. It'll be there for 7 years in total. It is a big deal shift for Sagittarius, even for the Sagittarius suns, because you're now getting the Uranus opposition to the sun. It is the start of a big shift in your life. And for some Sagittariuses, you'll look back at this time and be like, oh wow, life is really beginning to change and go in a different direction. I know that that's a big statement, but Uranus is Uranus. Its role is to get you to grow and evolve, and sometimes by any means possible. A lot of that change and evolution is going to happen through the framework of relationships, both how you interact and socialize with people and how you do relationships, whether it's lowercase r relationships or capital R relationships, your partnerships, your marriages, your serious long-term relationships, for example. And for some Sagittariuses, people are going to start to come into your life who are very different than the types of people that you've had before in your life. And maybe with Jupiter in the 8th, that's bringing up these sort of bigger themes about intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. Then we have the Capricorn full moon. That Capricorn full moon is in your second sign: money, income, material stability, and security. Maybe you are making a purchase or an investment. Maybe it's more about money in general and needing to get very clear about things, or maybe it's about value and worth, and even your own self-worth and value. Then there is Saturn turning retrograde in your fifth sign. The fifth sign is about the self. It's not the self of you, and on a very rudimentary level, it's how you express your passion, your joy, your creativity, the things that light you up and give you pleasure. And Saturn, this kind of seems like a weird planet to put with those words, but Saturn is saying that you are now in a time where you need to take yourself and take your talent seriously. And maybe with that Capricorn full moon, it is to know your self-worth and value, and to really push past that sort of all the emotional stuff that's coming up perhaps at this time with the full moon. But you will live this time in your own way. For some Sagittarius rising, it's about children, and maybe something about getting clear if you want children or not children, or pregnancy. Obviously, that's not relevant to everybody that's listening. But it is to listen for what this transit means for you. Capricorn, Saturn is your planet. So Saturn turning retrograde, it's really concentrating the energy of your planet in the sign of Aries right now. And Aries is your sign of home, family, roots, foundation. Saturn is saying to you, even though Saturn rules you, it is to know that you've entered a time of your life where family, the responsibility of family, putting down roots, a major move, getting very clear about the role of family in your life is your priority. And Capricorn typically already takes a lot of priorities on. You're a very hardworking sign. I think on some level it's always to put things in balance with that Saturn. But take note of what is going on right now, because when Saturn, throughout the rest of July and into August, and even February of 2026, even into 2028, this area of your life is going to be your primary focus. Then there's the Capricorn full moon. You are a Capricorn or a Capricorn rising, so this is putting the spotlight on you. It is a big time in your life. Maybe things are happening. Maybe it's not quiet. Maybe it's about relationships. Maybe it's about you. Maybe it's about family. But a lot of things are happening in your astrology at the moment. And then there's Uranus going into Gemini, and it's hard to say exactly what this is going to mean because it will be specific for your own life. But Gemini for you is a space that talks about your day-to-day life. We all have a day-to-day life. We wake up, we take the dog out, we do this, we do that, we go to work. That's what I mean by day-to-day life. And something about that day-to-day life is beginning to shift because either you need it to shift, it's not working for you, or life is just taking you in a different direction. For some Capricorns, it's about health and wellness. It's about to shift your relationship with your body, shift your relationship with your day-to-day life, your habits, your rituals, your addictions. It is to change your diet in some way. It is to bring exercise in if that's relevant for you. But it's for you to listen for what this time means for you, because it is the shift of something. It could be something as simple as you work in an office now, and over the coming years, you start working at home. That shifts your day-to-day life. But it's to listen for what is beginning to shift in your day-to-day life, or shift with your health, your consciousness around health and wellness, because that could mean it's part of this bigger story. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn is turning retrograde on Sunday, July 13th. And so twice a year, your planet turns retrograde, it turns direct. Don't worry, oh my God, it's not because Uranus or Saturn is turning retrograde. No, when Saturn turns retrograde, it's a time that you enter into more of a yin phase. I need to reflect, I need to go within, I need to sort, I need to analyze. And then when Saturn goes direct at the end of November of this year, then it's more of a yang phase, an active phase. Saturn turning retrograde is going to highlight a bigger story that will play out in your life until 2028. So I'm going to use my dad as an example because he's an Aquarius and it's something that I noticed. So my dad comes to me and he's like, I need your help. So I'm like tech support. And He's like, I want to do a podcast. My dad wrote a book. He wrote a couple of books. And so he wants, me to give him like the tech support on how to do a podcast. But I realized because Saturn, his planet is in, he's an Aquarius, it's in his third sign, voice and communication, how you think and listen and learn, that is how he is living the transit. He's thinking about, I need to take my voice seriously, I need to do a podcast. And that's just one example. That it might be different for you, Aquarius or Aquarius rising. But on some level, look at this time where it is about the choices you make. It is about how you're using your voice, and it's about being an authority of what you would need to say. For some Aquariuses, that will be through teaching or through a podcast, or maybe it's just how you carry yourself in your day-to-day life. For some Aquariuses, this is about your neighborhood, this is about your community, this is about how you're involved in things, but there is going to possibly be a lot of big travel and movement over the next few years for some Aquariuses, because this is also a travel space. Listen for the transit, kind of like the way I was using my dad as an example. Like, listen for the transit, like, oh, maybe this is about doing a podcast. Doesn't mean that that is the story for the next 3 years. But it's sort of giving you building blocks to what the transit and story means for you. Then there is the Capricorn full moon. Capricorn is something called your 12th sign. So around this time each year, you have a Capricorn full moon that talks about the need to let something go. We've come to the end of a chapter. What do you no longer need to hold on to? It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual, for example. And for some Aquariuses, this is a time to get quiet within yourself, to connect your spirituality, and to connect to those bigger questions that we all have as human beings on planet Earth. Why am I here? What is this all for? Saturn with the full moon, and then we have Uranus going into Gemini. So Gemini for you, Aquarius, is something called your 5th sign. Each and every person on this planet, all 8 billion of us, we're all our own people. And so Uranus going through your 5th sign, it is to help remind you who you truly are. You are not your circumstances, you are not the money you make, you are not the place that you're from, you are not your age. It is to get in touch with something inside of you that is universal. It is to begin to open up to talents and gifts and abilities that maybe you didn't realize were there, or maybe just to finally share something that you weren't able to share about yourself up until now. But it is interesting that we have the Uranus and Gemini, voice, communication, taking your talent seriously, taking your voice seriously, and also Saturn over in your 3rd. So this could be a time to have a breakthrough so that the words that are coming out of your mouth match what's in your heart. Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet, and we've been talking since over the last 6 weeks, Jupiter is now in Cancer. The energy of your sign is in your 5th. It is to get in touch with your talents, your gifts, your abilities, the things that light you up and give you joy, your passions, your pleasures. It is to fill your cup, so to speak, because, and I think I've been saying this more than a few times already, life has asked a lot of you the past few years, and maybe you need to fill your cup so that you can sort of continue to navigate life. That's where Jupiter is, but we've got a Capricorn full moon. Capricorn is your sign of community, society, social issues, social causes, friends, groups, and so this full moon is putting that part of your life in the spotlight, and it's taking the energy and pointing it over towards Saturn in the 2nd. So Saturn is now in your 2nd as of the end of May, and you've entered a time where money, income, material stability, and security is your priority. And you could argue, well, isn't that just a priority in general? Well, yes, we live in a material world. We go through different times in our life where maybe the way we live that priority is to buy a house, or it is to really shift our relationship with money, to have a budget, to stop spending money here and put money here, or to save money. Or maybe it's not money, it's more to find the stability and security within yourself so that you know your value and worth. with Saturn turning retrograde on this weekend, the 13th, it is to listen for what the transit is for you. It's not to expect anything. It's not like, oh, I was going to, maybe I'll go buy something. It's not to sort of force it. It is to naturally feel where the transit is speaking to you. Where do you feel your relationship with money and material stability is at the moment? Could it be different? Do you need to create a budget, or do you feel like now you have more money and you want to actually start to invest in things? Because I've actually seen Saturn go through this space and people have more money than they typically do, and they're making, having personal wealth and success, and they need to sort of figure out what's the important thing to invest in at the moment. Then there's Uranus and Gemini, and this is kind of a big deal for Pisces and Pisces rising because Uranus is now in your fourth sign of home and family. This is the same space that Jupiter was in from May of 2024 to to beginning of June 2025, except Uranus will be here in total for 7 years. I have seen the gamut of Uranus going through the fourth. I have seen people make major moves. I have seen people completely shift and reinvent the relationship with the word family. I've seen people start a family. I've seen people walk away from a toxic and abusive family. I've seen people come to peace within themselves because they're no longer carrying around the past. It is to begin to feel what this transit is for you, because it will be specific for your own life. Not every Pisces rising will make a move. Sometimes that move is not physical. Yes, you'll make a move, but it will be a move within. Listen for it, feel for it, especially these bigger questions about the future. The Capricorn full moon is also illuminating about your future and where you're going, where you're headed. And maybe with Uranus now in Gemini, the changes that you want to make so that you can align your life in a way that feels more in alignment with your heart. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of July 7th through 13th, 2025. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I appreciate you all. I know it's such a lot of stuff going on in the astrology these days, so you of course can book a consultation with me. We can see how this is unfolding for you, especially if you are hitting that 40 to 45 time frame. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Spotify. I'm on YouTube, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.